Hey everybody, Jake and Gino here, and welcome back to another Financial Freedom Friday. Gino, how you doing?
Jake, I'm doing great. How you doing, bro?
Doing excellent.
The first one that I want to talk about, a continuation from the last video. There's so many things that parents can do, so many things that we can do ourselves to learn, but we really want to teach our kids to be financial stewards of their money. Once they have control of their money, the fear goes away. I think if you can teach a child, and this is even for an adult, the difference between a need and a want. What do you need really in life? You need food, clothing, and apartments, right?
Oh,
Food,
oh,
clothing, and
oh! You,
shelter.
you you got me off balance there. Tell me again.
That's what you need. What do we need? We need food, we need clothing, and we need shelter. Those are the three basic needs. I think everything else after that becomes a want, right? And it's okay to want things, but know the difference, right? And in one of my partners, Mike, very intelligent, very financially savvy, he classifies cars and homes as luxuries. And once you have that idea, it's like, okay, I don't really need that. I want that stuff. I don't have to buy that today. I can defer that and invest in myself and invest in assets. And those assets can buy those luxuries. What the middle class and the poor people with the poor person's mentality, what they do is they focus on the wants and spend all their money on the wants. They don't focus on investing that money to have their assets buy those wants. That to me was life changing because then all of a sudden I felt the pressure of, okay, I don't really need that expensive house. I can go out and buy that 20 unit that's what I really need for
20
myself,
unit
focusing on
apartment
that.
complex that's going to create cash flow is what Gino's
Yes,
referring to.
thanks for
Yeah.
exactly. Or whatever investment you talk about, putting money into a mutual fund or buying stocks or buying whatever investment that looks like. That to me is a need right now because that is going to create money. If your money is not working hard for you, you have to think about it, right? Are you working hard for your money? Is your money working hard for you? Well, if it's not, then start creating those needs of I need to invest more of my money into assets to start creating that money so I can buy those wants. Does that make sense, Jake?
It does. I'm gonna actually challenge you right now. I'd love for you to tell. We may not have the time for it, but I'd love for you to tell a quick story about your son Michael and the guitar amp versus the apartment complex. I think that's so appropriate for this.
It's one of those stories I've shared a few times, but it's so worth listening to. And as parents, it's okay to say no to your children sometimes. It really is because when they're under 18 years of age, you're trying to guide them. My son is 15 years old, and he's a really good musician. He loves it. He's a great kid. He's got about $1,500 in his bank. No, I'm sorry. He's got about $5,000 in his bank account. And he looks and he finds this amplifier for his guitar, about $1,500. I'm like, Mike, I am not going to let you spend like 30% of your net worth on an amplifier that you already
And as a
had.
15-year-old getting discussed net worth, like I never heard the term net worth when I was 15. So like there's right there this huge value for him.
Yes,
But
because it's
yeah.
all about, your report card. It's all about your financial intelligence and the ability to use these words: cash flow, owner's draw, cap rates. And I'd been speaking to him this whole time since he's been growing up. He's been hearing me do Jake and Gino videos. So I'm like, I'm not going to let you buy it because you don't need it. You want it. Big difference, right? Defer, Mike, because you know what? When you have the deal, and right now he's 18 years old and he's learning about opportunity cost in economics in college right now. So the opportunity cost was huge because 6 months later, Jake and I invested in a deal and he had that $5,000 in his bank account. He put all the $5,000 into that deal. And what that happened was he has skin in the game now. He doesn't have the amplifier yet. He has money in his deal. Within a year of that deal, we had a couple of liquidity events. He's talking to me about owner draws. He's talking to me about refi and roll, these high level words that most adults don't know. Long story short, we've pulled out a ton of money on that deal. He's gotten all of his money back. And then on top of that, he went out and he brought the amplifier with the money from the deal. Now, that's the great thing. He's deferred gratification. Now he understands that, you know what, this deal's been going on for 2.5 years and there's a lot of legs left on this deal. But the ability for a child to make that connection that if I put things off and then when I have the money to do it and I've invested in other things and I take that money for a pleasure, that made me such a happy parent because now he understands the difference between a need and a want. And he's out there investing his money in assets to buy his wants.
The key here is not only the great education that Michael was able to receive from his father,
Mm-hmm.
but also incorporate your kids if you can into the business. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to beat them over the head with it, but little drips here and there, getting them involved, allowing them to speak the lingo, speaking the lingo with them slowly but surely, and then getting them involved in the deal. Now, as Michael gets an owner draw, as Gino referred to, he got a liquidity event. It's no longer 30% of his net worth. It may
Mm-hmm.
be 10% or 5%. And therefore, hey, we had a nice little liquidity event. Now let's go out and buy the amp, and then let's reinvest, back into the next deal. So it's showing how that snowball starts to grow at an early age. And it's just an amazing learning experience for your kids.
And you know what? Let's continue on with the amazing learning experiences. Listen to podcasts with your kids. There's a lot of finance podcasts out there. We have a podcast on multifamily. Start letting them listen to what you're listening to. Play board games with them. I love cash flow. Cash flow is one of the best games you will ever play with your children. They've got to be at least 10, 11 years old for them to really understand it. But even if they're younger, letting them fill out the balance sheet and income statements. My kids have seen what balance sheet and income statements are. And they're, 9 and 10 years old. They see that before. They see that buying a stock at $2 and selling it at 20. That's a great deal, right? They see the liabilities and the doodads versus what the assets are. That's really powerful. They're building up their vocabulary at such a young age, and they're not intimidated by money. They see that in the game that you can borrow money to buy an asset. They're already knowing the difference between personal debt and business debt, and it's all going through these board games, going through cash flow, and listening to these podcasts. That's really, really important, Jake.
Think about this. If you're taking your kid to soccer practice or you're going for a ride in the car, play a podcast about financial education, but don't say anything to them. Don't say, hey, listen to this, or hey, I want you to. Let it play. Don't be aggressive with it. And then that little repetition can build over time.
Two other things I really like to discuss before we sign off. The first one is instill a hard work ethic. You have the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. Your kids can be really super talented, but if you keep telling them that they're talented, one day they're going to come up against a challenge. They can't figure the challenge out. They're going to quit because, you know what? I'm just too smart. I can't figure it out. You need to instill that hard work ethic. And that has been one of the keys to my success in life. I don't always figure it out in the first try or the second try. Usually takes me 3 or 4 tries, but I know that if I work hard, the harder I work, the better I get at something. And I think that's really important. If you can instill that hard work ethic to your children, they won't quit. You always want to posture up and say, hey, you're doing a great job. Keep working hard. But you know what? If you're going to tell them, hey, you're smart, they're going to expect that they're smart. When something they can't figure out comes along, like Carol Dweck said in her book, Mindset, all of a sudden, they're going to make excuses. You can look at the greats of the world. Look at John McEnroe, fixed mindset. It was always somebody else's fault. He had so much talent, right? But he didn't work hard enough. He was always out there making excuses. So if you can teach your kids that hard work ethic and never quit, man, they're going to be way ahead of everybody else.
Gino, 2 ways that we do that in my family. Number 1, praise learning and growth. Okay. Don't necessarily, hey, you won, you're the best. When you see your child actually figuring something out, praise that component.
Yes.
And then in addition to it, we talked in previous episodes about our parent rules. One of our parent rules is actually you can achieve anything that you're willing to work hard for. So every week that's being instilled into my children, and they're hearing that. So I think having parent rules every week and reviewing it with your kids makes a big impact.
So, Jake, I had just said previously, you have the option to tell your children not to spend money on certain things. I'm going to flip-flop and say you also have the ability to give them choices. On certain smaller expenditures, give them the choice. So as they start to grow older, they know how to make those choices, because a lot of adults have paralysis analysis. They were always told what to do as kids, right? We're always told what to do. Go do your homework. You can only spend this. You can eat this. As they start getting older, let them start making choices, because as parents, our duty and our job is once our children turn 18, they should have the ability to leave the home and start making decisions by themselves. Now, both of my kids are home. My older ones, they love staying home, but they can go out tomorrow into the world and they can start living great lives because they have been able to make those choices for themselves. So don't stifle your children. Give them the option to make certain decisions and guide them. They're going to make mistakes. The only way we learn in life is by making those mistakes, and it's okay. Let's correct those mistakes. But like I said, on that amplifier, that was just too big of a purchase. But we're talking going to the store,
and he was younger
buying
as well.
Things, and he was younger. Yeah, exactly. So there's a couple things that parents shouldn't do. This is really important. I made a big mistake. When kids are younger, don't force them to read books that they can't understand. Don't force them to do things that's really hard for them, because they're going to equate difficult, hard with school. Right now, school is very challenging because you send the kid to school for 8 or an hour, 9 hours a day. There's so much work involved. Then there's homework. It becomes a chore. Don't do that to your child. Don't give them stuff that's really way above their skill level. And the other thing is, don't force them to save money without having fun. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I made early on with my children. They get money from birthdays and from grandma and all, and I take it from them and I say, we're going to put it away and save it. So all of a sudden they start equating saving with pain, because when they're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, they don't really grasp the idea of saving money and putting it aside. What you can do is, where do you want to spend some of it? Let's put some of it aside, and let's put some of it, and you can spend some of it. That's probably the best way to do it, because when you're young and you're pulling something away, they're identifying saving money with pain. That was mine. Why did you take it away from me, Dad? Right? It's a really, really hard thing, because when you're young, your kids are young, you want to instill that saving mentality in them and putting some money away, but they don't really get that when they're young. So, let them spend some of that money. Let them enjoy some of that money, and let them put some of that aside.
That's great advice, Gino.
So next week, we're going to be talking about the 7 cures for a lean purse.
Ooh.
I love, this is one of our favorite books. I mean, I remember giving it to Jake years and years ago. And what's great about it, George Clason, The Richest Man in Babylon, it's such an easy book to read, but the easy books are the classics. And Jake and I wrote The Honeybee right here. Basically, it's a business parable. So next week, we're going to be all over the 7 cures for a lean purse. Start doing those when you're young. And man, when you get older, it's going to really pay off. Thanks, Jake.
Awesome. Thanks, Gino.